Hello, everybody. I'm Aaron Simmons, and this is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, March 25th, 2020. Today, I want to think with you about what it means to be alone, to investigate how solitude can actually be perhaps one of the most important aspects for our social existence. Socrates once said that ultimately the task of human existence, the fundamental charge of philosophy itself, was to know thyself, to know ourselves. Knowing oneself seems like the most easy thing to do. And in fact, this is why Martin Heidegger suggests that the idea of knowing ourselves is taken for granted as obvious in ways that actually preclude our ability to inquire into ourselves very effectively. Those things that we take for granted are often those things that we no longer interrogate, that we no longer ask questions about. And so when we think about ourselves and we think about who it is we are and what it is to be the self that we find ourselves being, it's important that we be able to be alone with ourselves and figure out who we are and why it matters. Whitman, in fact, suggests in his Song of Joys that it's important to figure out how much one can stand. Now, admittedly, right now we're going through some days that are hard for all of us to stand. They're difficult, they're scary. We don't know what the future holds. And yet, in these moments of crisis, in these moments where we are pushed to our limits, we're also thrown back on ourselves. And this ability to be alone with ourselves and see how much we can stand, to see whether or not we can stand ourselves. It's important when we look in the mirror to like ourselves. And this is often difficult because the world moves at such a fast pace that we need it often to just be quiet so that we can hear ourselves think, as we say. Well, right now, the world's moving a little slower. Things are a little bit more difficult because we are not able to go about our normal routines that carry us forward in, we might say, the flow and stream of everyday life. Instead, we find ourselves in something of an eddy on this stream, where the water is spinning around without moving forward. But in that time, in that moment, we're able to then ask ourselves questions that at most other times we would ignore. William Temple once suggested that religion is what we do with our solitude. And this may or may not be a good definition of religion, but it is a good invitation to us for thinking about who we are and what matters to us. So today, while we are isolated, whether you're alone, you're single, and maybe you and your dog are at home, or whether you're alone with yourself, even surrounded by your family, try to invite your soul. As Whitman suggests, we loaf and invite our souls. We invite ourselves to really press in to that question, know thyself. Because it's not simply an injunction. It's not simply a command, you will know yourself. It's a question, an invitation. Will you know yourself? Will you have the courage to face up to who it is that you are and who it is that you're becoming? I tell my students a lot that we always are who we're becoming. And that might be a terrifying thought if we don't like ourselves. But it also can be an opportunity for renewal, for becoming the kind of person now that we hope we are living toward in the future. So today, I encourage you, I invite you to know yourself, to be willing to do the hard work it takes to be isolated and alone, and yet recognize that in doing this, we are becoming the kinds of beings better prepared and better able and better capable of engaging the world with others. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I hope that these are meaningful. Please comment and give me suggestions for other topics or questions you would like me to consider. And so, with that said, I'll see you tomorrow, unless a piano falls on our head.